Welcome to a pro detailed guide for using and carrying the games of Pokemon Unite with Inteleon. We're going to be covering the item builds, the emblem sets, the lane recommendations, the key power spikes with this Pokemon. We're also going to cover how you want to be playing that laning phase early versus your rotations after that initial 3 minutes. And we're also, most importantly, going to be covering in great detail how you're approaching and winning your Rayquaza fights with Inteleon. Let's waste no time to get a good mechanical understanding of Inteleon, starting with the item build and the emblem set. The items I'd recommend using on Inteleon is the spoon, 2 glasses, that's the choice specs, and the wise glasses. And the battle item I would be holding is the Shinichiro. Now, as for your emblems, this is quite variable. I like to use the green and the black emblems, but this purely comes down to your playstyle. So when you use Inteleon, you want to take this Pokemon to the bottom lane. You initially get 1 crit counter, you hit the first farm, and then what you want to do is stand near that first wall, go near the second wall, make sure you're not using your boosters, and then line up that water gun on that third wall to make sure that you are getting the most value for critical hit counters. Now, when you're farming in lane, you want to just look at this bunny, right? You make sure you use water gun to secure the farm. It's super important that you do this. Now, the other skill, which is tier 4 look, what that does is you will mark an enemy or a piece of farm, and the next time you attack them, whether it's with water gun or with your boosted attack, it will be a critical hit regardless of if you've got a critical hit counter ready to go. So my piece of advice with using tier 4 look is use it in conjunction with water gun when you're trying to secure the farm and you don't have any crit counters under your name. So that's the goal with your early laning phase. You want to try and hit level 5 by those first beasts, that's at level 9 mark. This is probably not always going to happen, okay, but your goal is to not die. Make sure you are always near the farm, because if you are dead, you are not near the farm. So it's very important that you've got this understanding. The only difference at level 5 is you get acrobatics, which essentially means more crit counters. I wouldn't be using acrobatics to try and follow up and do additional damage. I'd be using acrobatics to reposition around the enemy and get those crit counters. Now with Inteleon, you stand near the wall, you go into this camouflage mode, and you are going to be getting a crit counter, and they come up every 3 seconds, so long as you're out of that initial combat. When you use acrobatics, you can bounce off a wall or bounce off a Pokemon, and what's happening there is each time you bounce, the initial is going to add 1 to the crit counter, and then when you bounce off an object or a Pokemon, it's going to add another to your crit counter. So use this skill to get some value for your crit counters. When you hit that level 7, the skill that I would recommend using is Liquidation. Now this is where the skill comes in, because Liquidation and Acrobatics have got an amazing combination. It's really just skill cap about how you can pivot around the enemy. Now this leads into the perfect conversation for Inteleon. Where are the power spikes? When should I engage in fights? When have I got the advantage over the enemy? Have a look at the stats for Inteleon. Firstly, you can see you get a 5% initial crit straight off the bat. You get your biggest power spike initially at level 5 because you get that first evolution. You can see you get a big jump in your special attack, but most importantly, you get lifesteal based on the special attack that you deal. This is called Spell Vamp. Inteleon gains this Spell Vamp at level 5. This is incredibly strong. This is why Inteleon is really tough to take care of, because he's got a little bit of self-sustain. The next power spike for Inteleon is at level 7. That's when you get that evolution to become Inteleon, and you can see you get a huge jump in your special attack. This is incredibly valuable because you're going to be dishing out a lot more damage to the enemy. Your other power spikes are at level 9, level 11, and level 13, and this is when you're gaining that Unite move and the plus version of each of those skills. You can also see that that special attack is steadily increasing, but at those particular increments, it seems to jump by quite a bit. So understanding your power spikes when you're using Inteleon is going to inform you. If you're setting at level 12.5, for example, it's probably best practice to try and get some farm and hit level 13 rather than engage in a fight and not win it if that farm is available for you to be taking. Now let's talk about the macro of using Inteleon after this initial laning phase. you should be winning bottom lane 95% of the time with this Pokemon. It has incredibly strong secure. Remember, in your lane, you're not looking to fight them, you're not looking to kill them, you're looking to secure farm. If the enemy put themselves in a position to overcommit, then you can kill them and get that score experience, but that's only if the enemy make that mistake. You want to try and make sure that you are defending your goal zone. That is your number one thing. Keep that goal zone up, because if you are not scoring, you don't want to let the enemy be scoring in your goal zone. And when you're able to clean the enemy up and win in your lane, you're going to be able to get the score advantage, because having the score advantage in Pokemon Unite, especially with how Rayquaza functions, it's incredibly useful. Now, mid-game macro with Inteleon is very important. Here you can see I'm sitting at level 10 and about a quarter. I want to make sure that if I can hit level 11, that's going to be very, very helpful for me to win my next fight. I'm also only at about 55% Unite move charge, so I'm probably not going to be winning a fight if I go in too deep. So this is where you're going to be using your acrobatics and your liquidation to kite the enemy, to work around them so that they have to overcommit. Now, when you engage in fights, make sure you've got your critical hit counter on 3, because you want to be launching off your basic attacks and your liquidations to make sure that you're utilizing all the damage there. And you want to be bouncing off the wall with acrobatics, or bouncing off one of the wild Pokemon with acrobatics, such that you can maximize the critical hits that are being stored. Right? Be careful of the positioning that you're in. Here you can see that I'm kind of in a bit of an overcommitted position, but we're in their kind of territory there, and I've got my Unite move. I know the enemy have just used their Unite moves at that objectives, so this is a fight that I know me and my team are going to be able to win. So now again, 14% crit charge, we're looking at what we can do here. I'm thinking that scoring in the bottom lane is definitely the best way to go, and we get a huge overcap because we've forced the enemy to go out of their jungle. And what the enemy's doing at that stage is that they've just lost the fight, so they're probably going to give up a goal zone if we look to push it. Now, with 4 minutes to go in this game, we can see that I've got my Unite move charges, a little bit further to go. I'm close to level 13, so what I don't want to do here is I don't want to die. There's an objective here. I can see that my team is not in position and the enemy team is. I get caught out by the Fire Spin, and then I get caught out by the Delphox Unite. Honestly, I was out of position there. I shouldn't have been that deep. That's a very, very bad play from me. The enemy team aces us as a result, and I handed a lot of experience back to the enemy team. So that's an example of a very, very bad play. Now the Slowbro looks to capitalize by scoring that 49, while their team just goes and farms at that particular point. And look, I'm still level 12. If I had have just walked off and hit a bit of farm, I would have been in a much better position, but more importantly, the enemy wouldn't have gotten that experience by killing me. So that is a very net negative trade that I've made by trying to make sure that I'm present for a fight when I'm not in the position to do so. It's a very, very big mistake on my end. Now with 3 minutes here, I'm looking at my level. Can I hit level 14? Because that jump from level 13 to 14 is huge. Your special attack goes up by about 110. That is very, very big, guys. Don't disregard the value of going from level 13 to 14. If the enemy want to get Regieleki as a result, that's fine. You get up on that in that one level, because those levels between that level 12 and 13 versus 13 and 14, it's not just a one level gap. It's a very, very, very big difference, and it's just important to be aware of that, right? So at this stage, I'm going into Rayquaza. I make sure I've got my buffs. I make sure I'm level 14. I don't want to give any of that experience back to the enemy, because I don't want them to get anywhere near to the level that I'm at. I'm going into this fight with 3 critical hit markers ready to go. My skills are on cooldown, and I've got that Unite move and Shedinja ready to go. So when you're playing Inteleon, that's really important. You cannot be in an aggressive position without having your team there. You need to be in a safe position where you can pivot around walls and into grass. You're not looking to engage a fight, you're looking to kite the enemy, and when the team engages, you can follow up with some huge damage. Keep yourself in a safe spot, and as you can see here, I'm actually able to dodge that Zacian Unite move. I can't quite get him, so I've got to follow up with the damage that's happening in this top lane. Fortunately, I'm able to follow up and get some damage there. It was really well done from my team, but in the process, my team has lost there, but we've got 4 kills on them. I used that Shedinja to just kite out a little bit of time, and the Zacian just gets the kill on me. So we are ahead. We've got a huge lead. we saw that we've got a huge lead, and this is why it's really important to go into Rayquaza with that score lead, because now we're in a position where we can just defend our goal zones and we're forcing the enemy to start the Rayquaza. If my team was in the losing position here, I would be very worried because I'm going to need my team to start hitting that Rayquaza. So that's the importance of getting your big overcaps and making sure that you can get score in the enemy goal, but also very important to make sure that you're not letting the enemy score, right? Because if you save 80 points there, all of a sudden you've only got a lead of about 60, right? Rather than 140. So as you can see, the Delphox has gone off the score. I'm putting a lot of pressure on the Crustle. They get that score in, but it's honestly not quite enough to win the game. And we're in a bit of a tricky position here because their team's looking like they're doing a pretty good job. But again, I'm making sure that I'm in a kiting position. I use the Shinichiro to just buy out a little bit of time there. Right, I'm fortunate enough to get away using that acrobatics over the top of the Zacian, and we're here with time stalled. There's only a little bit of time left. This is why you need to go into those Rayquaza fights with a score lead, because it didn't matter if our team did the objective or not. All we had to do was make sure we maintained that lead. So I had to stop the scoring from the Crustle, and the Delphox only managed to get a little bit, even though our team was kind of losing those fights. The enemy team did win them, but we didn't get hard, we weren't hard losing, so therefore we're still in that winning position. This is how you want to approach Inteleon at that Rayquaza fight. Now I want to talk specifically with the mechanics of Inteleon. It's very rare that you want to put yourself in the position to score points into the enemy goal. You only will ever do this if it is free. Now I'm talking specifically when you've hit your level 7, so you've got that liquidation and you've got that acrobatics. Liquidation will automatically hop onto an enemy, and if you acrobatics the enemy or the wall, it'll reduce the cooldown of liquidation. But more importantly, you can see that I'm able to use acrobatics while the liquidation is going off, and this is really awesome, right? Because you're able to get that mobility and it reduces the cooldown of liquidation. So you engage with that liquidation, you can use that acrobatics to pivot around, and then you can follow up, right? And especially with this Unite move early, right? You're just going to be constantly getting a critical hit. So when you use that Unite move, a critical hit will be, I guess, coming for you every 1 second, and it lasts for 10 seconds. So to get the most value out of this, you want to make sure that you are using your basic attacks as much as you can, because these do a lot of damage when you're using that Unite move, and it scouts out the enemies that are within your zone. You don't really want to be spamming liquidation when you're Unite moving, because you are not able to basic attack, and that lasts for about 2 seconds. So I would recommend you can use liquidation maybe once or twice during that Unite move, probably at most once. What you're looking to do is utilize your basics and use acrobatics to reposition off walls and put yourself in a position such that you can hit the enemies with your basic attacks. And to finish off this Inteleon guide, we're going to do another analysis of a Rayquaza fight. Here you can see our team is in a much further winning position. I've got my Unite move ready to go. I use that acrobatics to reposition into a more aggressive position there. However, I'm sitting in this bush. I know that I can pivot off these walls and my team is on standby. So I know my team is engaging on the bottom 2 enemies there. I utilize that acrobatics to pivot away from the Wigglytuff there, right? I follow up, we get some kills, we got 4 kills on the enemy. I use that skill to jump over the top. I know I'm not getting my score in there, which is fine. I'm just putting myself in a position such that I'm able to get away. So you can see the acrobatics dashing off the wall in the middle of using that skill. Right now, what was pretty funny there is that our Inteleon, the Umbreon was actually body blocking from the Decidueye so that our Clefable could score. That was really, really good synergy from our team here, right? Again, the advantage in this game is that our team has gone into this Rayquaza without the necessity to finish the objective, right? We already have a score lead, so this is why Inteleon is really, really good. It's not because mechanically he's a great character, it's because he wins lane, and often your team is behind because you have lost your lane against this character, right? If this is the case, a lot of the time, the enemy team, if they're playing smart, they do not need to worry about finishing the objective. What they're worried about is making sure that the enemy doesn't get the objective and they maintain their score lead. This is the way that I love playing Pokemon Unite. I don't want to have to be concerned about the objective. I don't want to have to feel like I need to rip this objective, right? This is where this, I guess, this skill of playing the game and learning these macro of this character is going to come in, right? And as you can see, use the acrobatics. You can't get across the big walls, but it's not a big deal there. This Pokemon can do incredible work, especially at level 14, especially at level 15, and you want to utilize that combo of liquidation and acrobatics. It's not a complicated skill set to use, but you need to be aware of your matchups and how you can utilize this skill to win more games of Pokemon Unite. So if you found this guide helpful, please do give the video a like, drop a comment, let me know your thoughts, share it with a friend so you can lane together and you can win lane with either of you using Inteleon. Much love. I hope this guide was helpful, and if it was, if it's the sort of content that we want to see on this channel, please give me the big thumbs up. Please let me know in the comments, because I love making these guides, especially with these super fun Pokemon. Have a very good one, guys. Looking forward to making more of these in the future.